Fantastic, guys and girls. Okay, let's get the show on the road. So today, as we begin our lesson, I want to say what I call guiding questions. And guiding questions help us know kind of where we're going. They're almost like directions. So I'm going to read them for you. So to understand today's lesson, we're going to think about things like this. Do you know what a placeholder for something is? So in the chat, like think about, what does a placeholder do? Can anybody like type what you think a placeholder does in the chat? And while you're doing that, some of the other things we'll think about is, do you know what a variable does in mathematics? And how would you use a variable in a calculation? But just quickly type something in the chat so I know what do you think about the word placeholder for something, or anything that you can share with me would be fantastic. So Tando has said a variable. So do you know what a placeholder for something is? It's like a variable. That's one way of saying it. Yes. Okay, so the word variable is definitely coming through in the chat. A placeholder basically stands in for something. So Machle said stands for a number. Yes, exactly. So a lot of today is going to be about taking something which stands in place of something else, and that thing we often call a variable in mathematics. Now, the other thing I want to think about is how do you do calculations with something called a variable, and do we use the same rules for variables as we do for numbers? Now, that sounds very wordy. It's much easier if I show you, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention at the beginning. So let's start with this. In all my lessons, I always start with an example where I do it first, and then I give you a chance to practice it yourself. So in my example, you'll see that I say add 2 to A, and A is what we call a placeholder or a variable. And if I wrote that in algebra, it would be A plus 2. Now, the second one is a little bit harder. So let's think about it for a moment. If I subtract 1 from B, and this word from is difficult because B actually comes first, and I subtract 1 from it. And so this written in algebra as is going to be B minus 1, or written with a placeholder like this is going to be B minus 1.
Peter, can we please have the screen zoom out a little bit?
Zoom in, you mean? Like that?
Yes, I think like that is perfect.
Okay, now, if we want to double C, C is a placeholder. How would we write double C? We actually write it as 2 times C, or so we can write it like this, 2 times C, or in algebra, we write it as 2C. That's one way of writing it. Or if we double something, we often have 2 of them. So we could also write it as C plus C. So for example, if I have 4 of something, if I add 4 more, then I've doubled it. So I can either times by 2 or add another one. Then add 1 to D. Well, I start with D and I add 1. So D plus 1 is what those words mean. It's almost like we're doing a language course. Hey, we're learning to translate. And then the last one is subtract 3 from E. So we're taking something away from E. So I'm starting with E, and then I'm taking away 3. Okay, so this is an example of the type of question you're going to do now. Before you do your example, are there any questions from the students? All you're going to do is try and do what I've just done now. Okay, Tando has a question. So Tando, I'm going to unmute you and ask you to ask your question.
Sir, hello everyone. Hello ma'am. Hello sir.
Hello.
My question is, when it comes to algebra, do we first start with the number and then the letter, or the number then the letter?
Okay, we're going to cover the order of things in algebra in lesson 2. So in lesson 2, I think what you're thinking about, like when you have an algebraic term, Does the number come in front or after? I want to say that, can we press pause on that for today and just make sure we know how to translate? Then in the second lesson, we'll talk about good grammar. Okay,
Okay,
but
sir.
today we're just going to work on translating. Okay.
Right.
So what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask everyone to try and do this. So I've given you 5 questions, and I want you to try and do all 5, and I'm going to keep quiet and let you do this. And then once you feel comfortable, I want you to either put them in the chat, or at some point, maybe you can even raise your hand. But for the first 2 minutes, I'm not going to take any audio yet. I want to give everyone at least 2 minutes to try and do these. Okay. And then I will take hands after that point. Okay, over to you guys. Let's see how your translation skills go.
Let's do this, guys. You guys can do it. Woo, I see some answers already there. Let's do this, guys. Woo.
Okay.
You guys are awesome.
So if you don't understand what a word means, don't be afraid to ask that in the chat, because I know some people, the word, I mean, that's why we're doing this. It's a translation day, right? So for now, we just put our answers in the chat, and then once we've had a little bit more time, I will ask some students to maybe help us out a little bit here. I like what I'm seeing in the chat though. Linda, how about you? I think it looks pretty good so far.
Yeah, my people are doing it. My people are doing it. Well done, guys. Oh, so proud of everybody. Remember, you have to try it on your book so that you can do corrections, okay? Because that's very important. We're going to mark soon. So make sure you also write it on your book.
Okay. Okay, Tadiswe, can I suggest that when I mark this, make sure you take a screenshot. I think Yolanda, you were talking about this previously. A lot of the time, the lesson goes in these sections, and so it's quite helpful to have a screenshot maybe of the beginning and then after the answers have been written in. But don't worry, for those who are feeling lost, we're going to go through this right now. Okay. For Amorin, I'm going to ask you to unmute and help me with number 6 and 7. So I'm going to come to you now. If you could give us what you think the answer is for 6 and 7. I'm hoping to unmute you, Amorin. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name perfectly, but any luck there, Yolanda? Are you managing to unmute? Otherwise, Monica's hand is also up.
I'm trying. Amorin, can you please receive? You will see like a text coming there. So you just have to click there and say unmute.
I'm going to come to you, Monica. Then maybe Amorin will be with us in a moment.
There we go.
Yeah, Amorin.
I did not receive the questions, so I don't know.
Okay. All right. So then we're going to go to the next person, who's Monica. So Monica, if you could help us, if you're willing to help us with this question. Otherwise, if that doesn't work, I'll just go ahead for now for this round and I'll do them. Any luck there? Okay, so Monica, we're having some difficulty for some reason. So I'm going to explain this, guys, and we'll take answers in the next round. So what is half of f? There's 2 ways you can do it. The one is to say f divided by 2. So that's one way of saying it. The other way is by saying a half times by f, or you could just write it a half f. Now, I think Tanda was actually asking me about this. Is it actually different ways of saying the same thing? Probably the easiest way to write it is just a half f. But the three other ways of f divided by 2 or a half times by f, they mean the same thing in the language of algebra. Most of the time, though, you'll end up seeing in textbooks something like this. And a half next to an f means a half times f. To give you an example of how this works, imagine you had 6 of something, and I said I want half of 6. Well, what will happen if you go a half times 6? You'll get 3, which is a half of the original. Okay, let's do the next one. Multiply g by 4. You could write this as like this, g times 4. Or often in algebra, you'll see it written like this, 4g. And again, Tando, actually, this is what you were asking about now that I think about it. These two mean the same thing. They all mean g multiplied by 4. But often in algebra, you see we write the number first and the letter second when they're being multiplied. But both of these are correct as answers. Then multiply h by 3. We could go h times 3 like this. But h times 3 can also be written in algebra as 3h. And the reason that this can work is that when we multiply two things together, the order doesn't matter. So to give you an example, if I say to you 2 times 3 is 6, well, it turns out that 3 times 2 is also 6. And so that's why it can mean the same thing. But both those answers would be correct. They're both correct translations, just depends almost like what dialect you speak. Okay, then divide I by 3. Divide I by 3 would just be I divided by 3. Or we could write that as a third times by, a third times by I. Now, a third times by I is the same as I divided by 3. And then the last one, add 4 to j. Well, that basically is just going to be a j plus 4. And there's not really much ambiguity about that. That's just about you could write it as 4 plus j, I guess. That would mean the same thing. But they're both correct answers. Okay. Give us a thumbs up if you're feeling okay. Give us a thumbs down if you're feeling very confused. I just want to make sure. So I see some students wrote 4j. That's not correct in number 10. So in number 10, it's not correct to say 4j. 4j means 4 multiplied by j, and that's not happening here. In this case, you're adding 4 to the placeholder j. So I just want to make sure I make that correction. All right. Okay, fantastic. Guys, you've been doing so well. I'm even going into like what I would call like grammar of algebra, like how to write it the most neatly. But at this stage, we're mainly focused on just translating. Okay, so things are going to get a little bit more tricky now. And you may have to use a bit of brackets. Okay, that you may not, I'm not sure. But I just want you to try your best and do 16 to 20. And then while you are doing that, I will unmute some students who have some questions, but I'd love everybody to work on that first bit now. So who has a question? On Karabile, I'm going to unmute you now. If you've got a question, you can ask it while the other students are working on the problem.
Guys, remember, if you do feel a little bit lost, it's normal. This is a new content, so it's normal. You're allowed to feel a little bit lost, and by the end of this session, I promise you, you will understand it because Teacher Peter is the best. We will get it, okay?
Thanks, Yolanda. On Karabile, I'm trying to unmute you, but I don't think on your side it's working, so apologies. But if you are able to unmute, oh, there we go. What question do you have? On Karabile? Do you have a question? Yeah, we're going to mute you. Unfortunately, I think a little bit the question, I didn't hear it, but maybe another time. CD, I'm going to unmute you. Any questions from you? And then while we're doing the question, guys, we're working hard, and you can pop those answers in the chat for me.
CD, so remember that there will be a box coming through on your computer. You just have to click there and accept to unmute yourself.
So I see Ayanda's answer, I see Micah's answer, I see Laseri's answer coming through. Looking good, guys. Just keep swimming. Keep swimming. Let's see.
Yeah.
Hello, Amanda. How's it going?
Yes, I'm confused.
Yes, you're confused?
I'm confused with.
Okay, I think we seem to be losing the question there. Apologies. Amanda, can you hear me? No, I hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
If you wanted to focus more on geometry, because we're going to be writing a test next week,
Yes.
we can go.
Okay, at the very beginning of the lesson, I'm going to jump back very quickly. Then I need to come back to where we are. You go to the website, and if you go to the website, you go to classes, you select grade, and you'll find grade 8. You'll find all our previous lessons recorded, and you'll see geometry is there. Okay, but for now we have to stay with this topic. But I encourage all students to check out that base of pre-recorded lessons. Okay, I see lots of answers coming through, and so I'm going to give you another minute or so, and then I'm going to mark this.
Amashle, remember you're allowed also to put your question on the chat, okay? Because we couldn't get through your question. I don't know whether it's internet or something connections.
Okay, let's write down the answers to some of these. So in this first one, it says multiply p by 5. So multiplying p by 5 can, oh, that's way too big. Oops. Let's get, so p by 5 can either be written as p times 5, or it could be written as 5p. Both of those are correct. Once you've done that, you then need to take away 2. And so both of those ones in blue would be an answer for the first one. If we're being perfectly we do like the top one because it's nice and neat and tidy, but it takes a while before students understand that 5p literally means 5 times p or p times 5. And so I want to encourage you today, as I show you both options, start to make that connection. Okay, then add 7 to r. The second one is quite straightforward. It's just going to be 7 plus r, or it could be, I suppose, add 7 to r is actually written r plus 7. But in algebra, r plus 7 is the same thing as 7 plus r, because when you add something, the order doesn't matter. Add s to 7, so 7 plus s would be the answer for 18. But again, in the language of algebra, if you're adding or multiplying, the order doesn't matter as much. Well, it doesn't matter at all, to be honest. Subtract 10 from t. Okay, in subtraction, the order does matter. So I need to make sure I know where I'm starting. I'm starting at t, and I'm taking away 10 from t. So it's t minus 10. And then the last one, subtract u from 10. So I'm starting with 10, and I'm taking away u from 10. Okay. So watch out. These words from, the word from is such a tricky word, especially if you're not someone who speaks English as your first or second language. Like, from means to take from something. So you subtract u from 10. 10 is the thing that's being taken away from. Subtract 10 from t. You're taking away 10 from t. Okay. Let's do one more. Actually, let me give you a moment just to check your answers, and we're going to do one more set like this before the halftime break. But again, sir, can you explain? So can't you say u minus 10? Unfortunately, you can't. Subtraction, the order matters. So when we say subtract u from 10, whenever you see the word from, know it's saying take away from the thing I'm going to mention next. So you can't say u minus 10. When you have division and subtraction, the order really matters. When you have addition and multiplication, we say that the fancy word is commutative, and the order doesn't matter as much. Okay. So I'm not going to take audio questions at the moment. I'm just going to look at chat for the moment. But well done, guys. Well done. I really think you're doing exceptionally well from what I'm seeing. Okay. I want to see, let me just zoom out for a second because I'm losing track of where I am in my lesson. So I've done that. I've done that. Let us do a slightly different set to get to halftime. So over to you guys. I want you to write that sentence in algebra for me. Over to you guys. It's a pleasure, Ziki. It's a pleasure.
Let's do this, guys. Let's do this. Write it on your book so you can mark it. Amathe, I can still see your hand go, so you can just put the question on the chat also.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, I see Fareed has raised their hand, and while students are, I will take one audio question quickly. And so guys, I do like to take these. It's just sometimes that if the audio is not working properly, it can sometimes be distracting. But if the audio is working well, then it's great to hear your questions. So Fareed, I'm going to try and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, you're welcome to ask your question. However, I fear at the moment we're losing the battle. Sorry.
Fareed, a screen is gonna pop up on your computer, so you just have to click on it, and then you can talk to us.
There we go. Hey Fareed,
So,
how's it going? Hey.
So I didn't really want to ask a question. I wanted to answer the questions.
Oh, okay. Well, how about you tell me the first one? Multiply 2 by v. What do you get?
V times 2.
Yes, is v times 2. Yeah. So did you get that?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell me another way to write v times 2 that looks a little bit neater?
2 times V.
Yeah, and we say it 2v. So 2v literally means v times 2, but if we write it like that, it just sort of looks a little bit neater. Perfect. And how about the second one? Can you help me with the second one?
2W.
2w, exactly. So 2w, or another way of writing it would be w times by 2. Both are correct, but it's just a little bit easier to work with. Our brains like it when the number's in front and the letter comes afterwards. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then let's go to, I think it's in luck. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correct, but if you could unmute yourself and help us with the next two. Otherwise, I'm going to go.
Hello, Ndlak. So you're also going to get a message on your screen. Just click on it and then you can talk to us.
Okay. I'll give you a second or two more. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and do this one. Okay. I'll do the first one. If Inlat joins us, I will. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
How's it going?
I'm fine, you, sir?
Very good. What can we do for 23?
By 23, I think we're gonna so I think it's gonna be x over 5.
Perfect. Yes. Divide x by 5. So 5 is
Yes,
the thing doing the dividing. If you want to be really sneaky, you can also write it as a fifth x, but I think most students, I would advise you to write it like that, x over 5. And what about the last one?
Yes.
Divide 5 by y. Can you do that one?
I think it will be 5 over y.
Perfect. Can you see how the variable is in the denominator this time around? So like it's the other way around. If you look at the, I just want to point that out. So 5, divide 5 by y. Perfect. That was fantastic, man. Thank you so much for giving your answer.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, everyone, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a brain break. And what we're going to do for that brain break is I'm just going to ask you to very quickly stand up from your table and just, we're not going to do anything fancy, but just do your favorite stretch. So whatever your favorite stretch is, and we can, if you can turn your camera on, that will be awesome. But if you like a hamstring stretch, show us a hamstring stretch. If you like a neck stretch, like I do, show us your neck stretch. Oh, I'm hearing lots of clicks. Guys, I'm hearing so many clicks.
Let's go, guys. Mine will be just going to the room quickly.
Just stretch it out. Okay. See, Monica's got a good neck stretch going on. Akuma's got a good neck stretch. Yandisa, show us your favorite stretch. What's your favorite stretch? Denvoria, I know you want to. What's your favorite stretch? Okay, I'm going to stand up quickly and do a hamstring stretch just to get my legs working. So you may think the teacher's got a bit mad, but we know if you've been sitting for half an hour, your brain needs a break. It'll actually be better for your learning if you do get up and stand up. So I really encourage you, even if you're like, end of the day, trust me, it's worth it. Okay. Then what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to solve this puzzle. Okay. If you're in a car, I understand. You're excused this time. I want you to try and solve this logic puzzle. And what you have to do is you have to tell me the value of a peach. Have we done this one before? I don't think we have. What are 2 watermelon and what is a banana? So that is your challenge. Over to you guys. Don't worry, Micah. We'll bring the nose pen thing back at some point. We're giving it a break for now. Okay. So I'm looking for answers. And I've seen some answers. So for 2 watermelon, I see Ziki's got an answer there. I've got Lunga's put an answer in. Yep. Extend the break for like the whole year. Yeah, I'm afraid that's not going to happen, but yeah, we can all dream. We can all dream, I guess. Okay, so I see some people are saying, Amakle is saying a peach is 8. So it might be time to solve this. So I see 3 groups of watermelons. I think each group of 2 watermelons must be 12. And once I know what 2 watermelons are, okay, so that's easy enough. It's 12. Now, it gets a bit trickier when I get to the peaches, because 12 plus 2 peaches is 28. The only way that that is going to work is if this is an 8 and that is an 8. And so each peach is going to be 8. And then the last thing is a banana, and the banana is going to be 8 minus banana is 3, so it's going to be 5. Okay, guys, so your answers are a peach is 8, a watermelon, 2 watermelons are 12, one banana is 5. Now, guys, well done. I see lots of you got that right. Akuma, Minnie, well done, guys. You didn't even, I feel like you got that so quickly. I need to raise the bar with my brain challenges. But you know, one sneaky thing is you guys have been doing algebra and you don't even know it. So let me show you how I would translate this number puzzle into algebra. So for me, the letter W would be a good placeholder for a watermelon, right? So if you think about it, I could write this top line as 2W plus 2W plus 2W equals 36. I could also write the second line as 2W plus P for peach plus P for peach equals 28. Now take a moment to just look at that, because it's interesting. Whilst I don't want you to think too much about this yet, can you see how I did my translation from a picture to the language of algebra? If you understand, and I'm just curious to know, can you see the connection between the language of algebra here that I wrote and the picture? If you can, give me a thumbs up. If you don't really see the connection between the letters and the picture, give me a thumbs down. And so a lot of algebra is just about taking something and letting something stand in place of it. And I chose W because I like the idea of W for watermelon. I chose P for peach. And if I wrote the bottom one, I would probably write it like this: P minus B equals 3, where B stands for banana. Okay. Now, later in this course, we are going to learn how to work. You guys all solved the picture problem, piece of cake. You all used your own logic to solve that. Later in this course, we're going to learn how to work with the right-hand side, which are all these letters. But really, they are the same thing. It's just a placeholder. And so I want us to come back to this later in the course. Okay. All right, let's go back to what we were doing today. And let us go to the second part of the lesson. And I'm going to zoom out for a second. And I'm going to do another worked example if I can find my work, because the board is infinitely big, which makes it hard for the teacher to see where they're going. Actually, you know what? Let's do one more like this. You did so well in the last one. Before I do an example, over to you guys. I want you to try and do this. And I'm going to give you a little bit less time now.
Let's do this, guys. Remember to write it on your book, okay? So we can marking and correcting when you get it right and when you get it wrong.
Yeah.
Ask.
Cool.
Let's go, my people. Let's go.
Let's do it. Monica, I see you. I think you're on the right track there. Okay, remember when we say double something, another way of saying double something is timesing by 2, huh? Or doubling could just say, take what you've got and add it again. That's another way of doubling something. Yeah. Keep those answers coming, guys. Well done, Charity. I see your answer there. And well done to, yeah, things are looking good. Okay, Zama, let's see if you, oh, you're getting to the harder ones. What's going on there? I'll have to check that one. So in 15, that's an O, that's the letter O, hey? Just to make sure it's not 0, it's O.
That did trick me. I thought that was 0.
Yeah, no, that's the letter O. You can see it's slanted. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you another sort of 30 seconds or so, and then I'm going to put the answers on the board. Let me unmute some students. I'll take a couple of, Sibongokule, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Maybe you can help me with some of the answers. And then, hello.
Yes, sir.
How's it going?
Good. Just
with the
exams. Okay,
Okay.
so 11 is 2k plus 1.
Okay, fantastic. So you doubled k by timesing by 2 and you added 1. And what about number 12?
Number 12 is 2l. Is that an L? I couldn't say, I wrote L.
It's 2l, yeah?
Minus 2 or subtracted by 2.
Okay, and I'm going to push you even further. Can you do 13?
M over 2 plus 3.
Fantastic. You have been fantastic. Thank you for your help.
Well done, Sibongokule.
Okay. Now I'm going to be a little bit sneaky, well, not sneaky, but I'm going to show you that's perfectly correct. Another way you could have written this one is to say a half m plus 3. So some students might have written a half m plus 3. That is exactly the same thing in algebra. Although I suppose the majority of us would have done the first one, which is completely perfect. Then 14, halve n. So to halve n, I go n divided by 2, take away 1. And then the last one is to multiply O by 3 and add 4. Now, what I'm going to do there is I'm actually going to do it in 2 steps. I'm going to say O times 3 plus 4. And then, guys, what I'm going to do, and I don't have to do it, it's not wrong, but just to make it a little bit neater, I'm going to write this as 3O plus 4. Now, the problem is with an O, it looks like 30. So that is really not a good choice, is it? So, okay, maybe I should just leave it like the top line because otherwise it gets confusing. But yeah, okay, fantastic. I think I see lots of good answers there. Let's move on to the next. Well, give me a thumbs up if you're feeling good, thumbs down if you're feeling confused, and then we're going to move on to another type of question.
Well done, guys. You guys are doing well. Doing awesome.
Fantastic. You're winning at life. Okay, well, you're winning at algebra. Maybe not winning at, but yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do, guys, to finish today's lesson is I'm going to show you how to do a particular type of question that's a bit harder. And then, yeah, then I'm going to give you one more question to do. Actually, I don't even know if this is that much harder. Multiply R by 8 and then add 1. Okay, well, we can't do those two because they are missing something. And that one is also missing it. So I tell you what, why don't you guys, since you're doing so well today, you're exceeding my expectations by a long way, why don't you do these two for me? Now, they're a little bit harder. And especially the second one, it's a little bit sneaky, but I want to see how you guys can do. Just try it. So you're doing the ones that are highlighted. So the one in yellow here, and then this one over here. All I'm going to say is think about when you're doubling it. That's all I'm going to say. All right. And then put your answers in the chat. Okay, the first one you guys are smashing. I can see that. Now the second one, a little bit trickier, little bit trickier. So for the second one, think about when you add 2 to U and then double it. When are you doubling is the sneaky bit that I want you to think about.
Francis just said washa, which means like it's hot.
It's hot.
Yeah, it's getting hot in here. I agree, Princess.
Yeah. What's the word for hot in Swahili? Is it kushushu? Or that fierce? Yeah, no, it's getting, yeah. Okay. So the first one, multiply R by 8 and then add 1. Most of you are getting 8R plus 1, which is perfectly correct. Or you could have written it as R times 8 plus 1. Perfect. However, the second one is a little bit sneakier, guys. And the reason it's sneakier is that you have to add 2 to U, and then you have to take whatever that is, and you then double it. And in algebra, this type of thing is a little bit more sneaky. So I think a lot of you would have got add 2 to U as U plus 2. So give me a thumbs up if you got U plus 2 as the first bit. Okay, now here comes the problem, guys. We're not just doubling the U anymore. We have to double the whole thing of U plus 2. So I'm going to put it inside a bracket so that it's all together. And then what I'm going to do to double it, what do I normally do? I just multiply it by 2. And so what happens is in order to write this one, we write 2 bracket U plus 2, which basically allows us to double the first bit. Okay. And so that was me taking it up a notch there, is that sometimes when you add something first and you double it, you're not just doubling the original U, you're doubling the U and the 2. So let me see if that is something which we can practice to end the lesson, and then we'll go from there. And then I've got that one already. Okay. Let me find one. Okay, I tell you about this. Let's just do this last, the ones I highlight. So to finish this lesson, and we're going to do a poll after that, you are going to do these 3. And I am making them hard, a little bit harder now, but just go with what you think. So we'll make this number 1, number 2, and number 3, and those will be our last ones for today's lesson. And then let's see if those answers. So Amanda, you can't just say 2U plus 2. You have to double it. Yeah. And so then while students are actually doing this last one, or does the poll block their screens when we send them a poll?
Yes, so to some of them, yes, they won't manage to see this.
Okay, we'll wait a little bit then. So the first one, divide m by 3 and then add 10. We're going to get m divided by 3 plus 10. Now, think about the last question. Add 10 to n and then divide by 4. What is that divide by 4 referring to? Is it dividing only one thing by 4, or is it dividing a whole thing by 4? Okay. I'll give you, what do you think the answer for number 2 is going to be? Yes, so add 10 to n and then divide by 4. How would I write that as in algebra? So I'm going to start with n. I'm going to add 10, but that whole thing needs to be divided by 4. So it's add 10 to n, and then that whole thing gets divided by 4. And then the very last one, guys, add 5 to O and then halve it. So if I add 5 to O, I'm just going to get O plus 5. And how do I halve something? I'm just going to divide it by 2. Now, it's really important. Some of you may need to even put, you don't have to, if you've got the fraction bracket, it divides it. But remember that the O plus 5 has to be added together first, and then it's divided by 2. The 2 is dividing both things. And that's really important. And we're going to pick that up in the next lesson. Okay. I just want to say, guys, you've been fantastic. And I've really enjoyed the lesson. I hope that it's been good for you too. Yulinda, if you could just send the students a poll. We like to do a poll just to make sure that we are trying to keep a pace that's good for almost everyone. And so it really helps us, guys, if you fill in this poll for us. So if you could help us by doing that. And then I'm going to say class is over for tonight. I really hope that you've enjoyed it. But yeah, and it was great to be with you tonight. Okay.